I would bring together 10 to 15 new startups or new products. And I would say, all right, audience, that cool product, tweet about it, blog about it, take a picture, post it somewhere. And with this social media power, a couple hundred people in a room all tweeting about your new product, suddenly you are reaching people you never thought possible.
Hey, everybody, I'm Dr. Kristen Donnelly of the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. At Abbey Research, we believe that curiosity can change the world because it's the only thing that actually ever has. The human race moves forward by asking questions like, what is over that hill? What does this taste like? What happens if I poke that bear? We all figure out things by asking questions. And so this series is in service of that. It's called Welcome to My World, and I get the incredible opportunity to talk to people who are different than me, which, spoiler alert, is everybody, from all over the place about something in their lives that if we knew about it, our life would be richer. We would understand humanity better. We would ask more informed questions about the planet. And today's guest is absolutely no exception. I am so honored to be joined by one of my personal heroes. Her name's Bobbie Carlton. She's the founder of Carlton PR and Marketing, Innovation Nights, and Innovation Women, which is the one we'll be focusing on today. She refers to them as the day job, the night job, and the dream job, which I love because I definitely have those. She's definitely an entertaining and tell it as it is speaker. We have a very similar vibe, so I think this is going to be a fun conversation. She's also a TEDx speaker, but she's spoken at the United Nations, which I have not done yet. And she's been on the main stage for some of the world's best known conferences for technical and professional women, featured on CBS News, in the Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, USA Today. She's basically a queen, and I can't wait for you guys to get to know her. And we're especially going to talk about her crusade to end Manals. So Bobbie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I love your introduction. Just makes me laugh.
I mean, I try to make it, we all write the bios because we have to, but the dream is for someone to not just read it. So I try to do that. Okay, so let's just jump into it. This dream job, talk to me about Innovation Women. What is it? Where did it come from?
All right. It comes from the fact that I was sick and tired of sitting in audiences watching what I call the male, pale, and stale panels. The same for old white guys over and over again. And nothing against old white guys. I'm married to one. I just don't want to hear only old white guys speaking. 2/3 of all conference speakers are men, and that leaves women out of so many opportunities. So Innovation Women is all about getting women on stage and making it super easy for event managers to offer up diverse and inclusive events.
I love that differentiation between diverse and inclusive.
Yes,
because they are very different. Can you tell me what that means to you?
So to me, diversity is the breadth of human existence and experience. It's all of the different things that go into making us who we are. It's the different perspectives. It's the different life experiences. I may have a very different experience than you. I grew up in a very rural place. Maybe you grew up in an urban place. So there are things like that that change our perspectives and give us a point of view that could allow people to learn something. And then there's inclusive. Inclusive is kind of the other side of it. As event managers, we need to be inclusive. We need to be welcoming to all, and we need to put on stage people that help the audience understand different perspectives.
I love that. I always say you can't create a diverse room because every room you're in is already diverse.
Right.
And that's yeah. And so that's actually my first TEDx is on the idea that we've got to stop being tolerant, because tolerance prevents activating that diversity into inclusivity, because we just narrow people down to the one thing that we know about them.
This is why I show up for your events. I love you. That's awesome.
It's like, okay, well, so we've got to start talking about this differently. And that's why I latched on. Yeah. And so inclusivity, the way I explain it to organizations is that it's allowing people to show up on their terms and not yours.
Yeah.
So they're not the token XYZ. They bring whatever they feel comfortable to the table, no matter what that is. So I love that, because yeah, as somebody applying for a lot of speaking engagements, which like at this point feels like a full-time job.
Yeah.
To try to get on these stages. As a inclusivity speaker, one of the things I get the most is I only want a woman of color to talk about this, which is their prerogative. They're absolutely allowed to say that. And the other thing is, what are your credentials kind of thing. And I always wonder if they ask men the same question, because my credentials is I have 3 advanced degrees, including a PhD, and 4 TEDx talks. So I'm not entirely sure what other credentials you want, except maybe you want me to be a dude.
That is entirely possible.
That is entirely possible. So
I have actually worked with marketing people who are looking to hire on-camera faces. Okay. And they will have very specific demographics that they're trying to hit. And I remember talking to one particular marketing manager who was very active in diversity and inclusion. And she's like, I'm sitting here with a task, and I know that my target audience finds men more persuasive in this topic. She's like, as a marketing person, I know what I need to do. As a woman and as someone who is involved in diversity and inclusion, it's killing me.
That's a great perspective to bring to this, because so often people on my side of the conversation are like, why can't people just be brave? Well, because their data is telling them that being brave is going to cost them their job, maybe.
That is true.
That's a really good, thank you for bringing that. I'm glad that I have that in my brain now. So what I would love to know, let's dial this back. Why PR? Why this world? What's your journey to it?
Okay, so I started out wanting to be Jessica Savage. I wanted to be in the news, face for radio, and actually direct quote from one of my college professors. Oof. Like, thank you, sir. Yeah. But I went to college for broadcasting. I worked in radio, and I got introduced to radio news kind of from the other side. It's like realizing that the PR people knew all the stuff that I was trying to understand was intriguing. And so I got into public relations. I'm a good writer. A lot of people are like, oh, PR people, they're the people. Not necessarily. Generally, we're good writers. We're good researchers. I'm actually an introvert, which surprises some people. But, you learn professionally to be an extrovert. You learn professionally to be a good public speaker. But my loves are writing and research and communicating, which make me an excellent public relations person. Yeah. And I worked for very large enterprise software companies, public companies. I worked at agencies. And when the market fell off a cliff in 2008, I was working with a startup that ran out of money. Hence, create your own job, Bobbie. There were no jobs around. So hung out of shingles, started my own agency, which at the time was me. And it was also a time when social media was on the rise. Very intriguing to me, because I'd always been working with the gatekeepers. My job was to get things into the media, working with reporters, working with editors to get to my end target audience. Suddenly I could go direct.
Hmm.
I don't need your stinking newspaper. Ha ha. No, I don't feel that way. Really. I love you, all the reporters watching this. Really, I love you. But I really could, for the first time, go directly to my audience by using the web, by using social media. I was like, oh, this is so much power. I was so excited. And that's when I started Innovation Nights. That was,
Okay.
the kind of the path there was figuring out how to use social media to help promote startups and
Okay.
bring together a community.
So what is Innovation Nights?
Innovation Nights is a social media powered monthly new product launch event I started in 2009. The
Okay.
idea was get a whole big room full of people together, have them bring their smart devices and see something cool, a new startup. I would bring together 10 to 15 new startups or new products. And I would say, all right, audience, that cool product, tweet about it, blog about it, take a picture, post it somewhere. And with this social media power, a couple hundred people in a room all tweeting about your new product, suddenly you are reaching people you never thought possible. As we kind of created a social media amplification program, on any given month, we were reaching between 2 and 3 million views just using social media. We launched 1,500 new products over a decade, and those companies got more than $4 billion in funding. And we did it all on a shoestring. And it really was something that brought together the local community. And it had such amazing energy because it was an event with a purpose.
Mm.
Make these products successful and we as a community will be successful, which in 2009 was a big issue. The Great Recession was definitely in high gear. A lot of people that came to the events were out of work. I got laid off and now I can start building my dream company. And so they needed help. They brought a product to market and they needed the community support to get to that first customer, to get that first visibility, to make that partnership, maybe to get funded. And we could do that for them as a collective.
And you're using past tense. So has this been a COVID casualty?
Not necessarily, but
Okay.
definitely the live in-person events were.
Yeah.
What we're doing now is actually expanding into other marketplaces. So,
Okay.
there's Maine Innovation Nights. And in the past, we have done New York Innovation Nights and Connecticut Innovation Nights and New Hampshire Innovation Nights. The idea is to teach people this concept of crowd promoting, getting
Mm.
together a group of people, a community, and using that community to support your local startups.
I
It's
think that's,
economic development.
yeah, I think that's great, especially because it's like democratized Shark Tank, which is it's so much more fun to think about the entire community as the gatekeeper to success in a certain way. Like, hey, this is going to work here and we want to promote this because it benefits all of us, to I'm not into that because I don't think it works for us. In a kind of communal sense is a real revolution to trying to get past the pale, male, and stale gatekeepers.
Yep. I mean, I just found the Innovation Nights community so supportive, so giving. I people ask me all the time, like, oh, what's your favorite product? And I'm like, it's like asking me what's my favorite kid. It doesn't work that way. Yes, there were products that came in the door and I'd be like, ooh, I'm not the target market for that. But they still were deserving of
Yeah.
community support. And it was entirely possible that, I'm not the target market for that, but maybe you are, or
Yeah.
your cousin, or your next door neighbor. And, when you're looking at a community driven thing like this, you get a couple hundred people in a room and the synergies start to swirl and the collisions happen, and it's magic.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about what this would look like for ideas. And it's what TED wants to be, and I don't
Yeah.
think it is for a host of reasons. And one of them is that because the TEDx's are so individually organized, it's people with all different skill sets.
Yeah.
So what we need is like professional event organizers to put on this kind of thing. But I would find it fascinating to have that kind of salon in a certain way for ideas. That's just really, really interesting.
Yeah. It's we are still doing some events in a virtual sense. It was funny when the vaccinations got announced. Okay. Almost immediately my phone started to ring and people are like, okay, are we going back to, doing mass innovation nights? I'm like, oh, time out. Like, I'm not ready for that. Yeah. And we were doing virtual support. We still do like a weekly newsletter. We're supporting events in the community. All of the things that we were doing with innovation nights were designed to support the community of innovators. Obviously, the Boston market is just chock full.
But like it's dripping with ideas. Yeah. Yeah.
It's dripping with ideas, but that's one of the reasons it was so interesting to go into other communities.
Yeah.
And to see, this works even outside of Boston, because all communities have one thing in common, in that they are supporting their startups. They are looking for ways to support each other. And the thing about crowd promoting and the concept that I put together is that everybody has to win for it to be successful. If there's only one group giving and one group taking all the time, it's not sustainable. But if you have an event and a concept and a process where everyone gets something out of it, it's sustainable long term. And we did this for 11 years, 137 events, and every time you would have a whole group of people there. There were people that followed us around because we would hold the events in different places. And the people who sponsored it and hosted it, often big companies, they were using it as recruiting. And the startups were getting visibility and connections, and the social media people were getting content and ideas and more connections and sometimes jobs and customers themselves. Because at the point of time when a startup is launching their new product, they need everything. They need lawyers, they need accountants, they need marketing. So it really became this incredible marketplace too.
Yeah, it's as you were explaining all of that, I was just thinking, like, how many times in my life have I said, well, I wish I didn't have to support this corporation, but I don't, like massive multinational, not like a big company, but like I really wish I didn't have to use Amazon, but I can't find another option. And we all want to support mom and pop stuff. We all want to support small business. So many of us just don't know how, or there isn't that option in our local town, or it isn't there. And we want to help. We want to be part of something.
Yeah.
And that's really, really magical.
Yeah, no, I miss our communities, our get-togethers, but it has also given me the opportunity to spend time with innovation women.
So that leads a great transition. Wondering now that, I mean, we are opening back up.
Yes.
Where do you kind of see all of your various companies, your marionette self? What's next? What are you dreaming up right now?
Well, one of the things I think that the pandemic gave us, in addition to taking away so much, is it gave us a comfort with, this.
Yeah.
The online world, the doing meetings via Zoom. I don't need to hop in my car or on a plane to get connected with people and communicate my ideas. So I see a really big continuing virtual and online event community, as well as events are going to have to step up their games. They are going to have to give me a reason to hop on a plane. They're going to have to give me a reason to leave my house and come and see them. And what's that reason going to be? A lot of times it's going to be amazing speakers. So, innovation women, yay, yay, yay. And we've been working over the last 2 years with so many of our speakers, like getting them these videos that allow them to be seen as virtual and online speakers, getting them comfortable with the technology, and making sure that our platform is working to easily connect event managers and speakers who just happen to be women.
Who just happen to be a woman. Yeah. And full disclosure, I'm an innovation woman speaker. I have a profile up there, and I really, I love it. And I love it's even though I have not found as of right now an opportunity through it, I am still really, really excited about the prospect and really excited about the platform, because there's not a lot of there's nothing else like it. There's absolutely nothing else like it. But there's also, it's so hard to navigate how to get on stages. It's so impossible. And people that don't know this don't know that piece of it. I think they could just kind of assume that we're all in a speaker bureau if you want to become a speaker. And that's not how this works, especially as so many bureaus have shuttered in the last couple of years because of the lack of events and everything else. So I think this is a really fun intersection where, yeah, there's online events, there's in-person events. And I totally agree. I just got an email asking me to come to an in-person event in Atlanta. For me alone, it was going to be $1,700. And I was like, okay, that's a lot of money. And then there was only one of the 4 keynotes I wanted to see, because one of them is Malcolm Gladwell. And I've heard him talk. Like, I'm solid. He's great, but I'm solid. Yeah. One of them was Dan Levy, who I love, but I've also heard interviews and I'm good. Then the other one was Priya Parker, who I would love to hear talk about how to create spaces of welcome, because I love her book and I'd really love to hear her talk, but I'm not paying $1,700 to hear Priya Parker talk.
And I imagine that you can do a little bit of investigating and come up with her online somewhere.
Yeah, I think she's been interviewed a few places. So yeah. It's but it was an HR conference. And that's great. And it was all HR geared towards corporate HR, which is not the space that I'm in. So it would have just been going for networking and trying to get business. And I was like, I'm not paying right now $1,800 plus flights, airfare, food in downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
To do this world. And I think that to me is one of the old models of events, where it's just workshop after workshop after workshop, no time to get to know people, and a lot of money up front.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can move to more collaborative, like really good speakers, but also some time to get to know people.
And one of the things that you were talking about was, some of the keynotes you've seen before. You're like, I'm good with them, right?
Yeah, I'm solid.
And I think one of the things that event managers must struggle with is they have the perception of these butts and seats speakers. Like,
right.
I'm going to get Michelle Obama on my stage and everyone will come because, okay.
Michelle Obama. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But there's also a sense of, I look at a non-Michelle Obama agenda and I say, well, I've seen that person. I've seen that person. I've seen that person. I've seen that person. What's new here?
Yeah.
And as speakers, as event managers, we have to keep delivering the new, the mind-blowing, I never heard that, oh my God, kind of presentations and just thought process and new speakers, new voices. But it's hard to get on stage as a new speaker. It's hard to break through. You have to rise up through the ranks and you have to be connected to the right people.
It's such a puzzle. I struggle with it. When people assume with these 4 TEDx's, like the number of times I've gotten questions in the last couple of months, they're like, well, I'm sure your phone is ringing off the hook now. Like, it actually hasn't rung once. Because like, that's not how this works. Like, I did all 4 of mine in 8 months. Oof. Like that, it's not a lot of time for people to know who I am, for people to hear my message and go, oh, I have an event. The event they're planning might be 3 years out. Like, everything's still really weird right now, but speaking doesn't often work in somebody sees an idea and goes, oh, I need them on my stage, as much as people think, because it's all those other alchemies. No one's going to come and see me. I'm not a name. Like I have really innovative ideas, but I don't have a brand that is going to sell tickets.
And that's where the author speaker comes into play.
Yeah.
It's like, that's one of the reasons that a lot of speakers are like, I have to write a book. And yeah, there's a certain amount of that. You have to build a foundation of great ideas that capture people's attention, and don't tell them everything, like leave you some area of surprise. I also talk about this. So, a lot of the Innovation Women members are authors as well. It's one of the reasons we have a bookstore on Innovation.
Yeah.
Like that becomes part of it. And people will read a book and say, I want to see that person. But it can also be a podcast. It can also be a blog. It can be articles that you write on LinkedIn. You have to constantly keep building up that foundation of expertise and branding and visibility to drive speaking engagements. Or maybe the speaking engagements also drive a business. So different ways of going about this.
Yeah. And none of them are. One of the reasons I love the idea of a community run Innovation Women is it's like, hey, this journey is going to be different for all of us. So let's get as many resources as we can. So whatever piece of the journey you're on, there's some guidance. But like how I'm going to get there is completely different than someone who's doing some really pragmatic stuff like teaching copywriting. Mine isn't really pragmatic. So I'm not going to be at a marketing conference unless you also want to talk about humans. So it's this kind of, you have to navigate it yourself, and finding the trustworthy voices is a challenge. And so I'm really, really glad that you went out on a limb and started this thing. I think it's a really good thing. And I am conscious of our time. I mean, I could talk to you forever, but I'm going to hit pause on our conversation today to be honoring your time. So Bobbie, where on the internet can people find you?
Innovationwomen.com is probably the easiest, but I'm very Googleable. So Bobbie Carlton.
I should start saying that, because Kristen Donnelly, if you Google me, the only other person that comes up on YouTube is a high school tennis player. So I'm pretty recognizable, because I'll tell you what, I'm not a high school tennis player.
I will admit that I recently had a great conversation with Bobbie Carlton, Bobbie Carlton. I am Bobbie. It turns out we grew up very close to each other, where we've been on the same South by Southwest committee. And I'm like, nobody ever mentioned there's two Bobbie Carltons.
That's a missed opportunity.
Committee. Yeah, he actually took it's a he, and he took a picture of the Zoom screen, Bobbie Carlton and Bobbie Carlton. It was great. It was fun to connect with somebody that you have one thing in common with, and it's nothing else but looking for the similarities, and it was just a good time.
I love that story. What a beautiful way to end. Well, pals, if you've loved this conversation, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up on the video. It tells the algorithm that it's worth people's times, and YouTube will tell other people to watch it. We'd really, really love that. If you like this kind of conversation and you're a curious person, I think my channel might be a good home for you. So hit subscribe. Lots and lots of conversations here on Welcome to My World, but we've also got other series where Dr. Aaron and I talk about pop culture. So I think right now, as you're watching this, we've just wrapped our coverage on The Dropout and Bridgerton, and we're probably talking about we need to talk about Cosby. So if you are interested in hearing some social science perspectives on pop culture, we're your girls. We also have some work on international perspectives and figuring out how to deal with the legacy of colonization, which is something we should all be doing, whether we realize it or not. So lots of content here on the channel. We'd love to have you join us. No matter if you choose to do that again, or if this is the only time we meet, I deeply thank you for your time. It is the only non-renewable commodity, and I never take it lightly when people spend their time with me and my content. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I hope you learned something. And my wish for you is that you can now move out and use your voice in more strategic ways to build the community around you that you wish to see. This series is Welcome to My World. My guest today has been Bobbie Carlton. My name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly, and I'll see you next time. Bye.